Everyone. If you are in the Pacific Standard Time Zone, might be at various times, thanks to the virtual nature of this conference. Welcome to the last interactive track before the closing thoughts today for PyCascades 2021. We hope you've had a good time. My name is Madison. I'm a data engineer at Ookla, the company behind Speedtest, and an avid podcast listener. And I am honored to be here and joined by Brian Okken and Michael Kennedy for All About Podcasting, the hosts of Talk Python to Me, Test and Code, and Python Bytes. So, Brian and Michael, do you mind introducing yourselves?
Hello. Thanks for having us. Brian, go first. Introduce yourself.
I'm Brian Okken, and I podcast. I'm also a software engineer.
Right on. I'm Michael Kennedy. Big fan of Python, as you might guess. I've been doing 2 podcasts, Talk Python to Me, as many people know. I started that 2015, and then Brian and I, about a year later, started Python Bytes. So we've been running a couple of shows for at least 4 years now, and it's been quite a journey, and it's super, super fun. I guess it's also worth throwing out there. I'm a Python Software Foundation Fellow, so thank you for that as well. That's a pretty awesome honor. Anyway, it's so great to be here with everyone, and thanks, Madison, for hosting this.
Of course, yeah, that's awesome. I mean, 4.5 years, it's quite a journey. I'm interested to hear more about the beginning of that and how both of you got your starts in podcasting.
Yeah, so I started as I kind of got into it because I had a fear of public speaking, and I knew that was something that I needed to tackle, really, because I think as a career, I wish they had more training about public speaking early on in like computer science programs or something. I don't think that I had to do much of it in college, but I'm also an introvert, so that's it's something to tackle. But I have worked on it, and podcasting was a way for me to kind of get through it. And I think that helped quite a bit to be able to I get to talk to people, thousands of people every week, but I still do it in a room by myself. So it works out nice.
Sort of a little bit of both worlds, right?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I got into podcasting because I had been a long fan for many, many years before podcasting was called podcasting, actually. When it was just download MP3s in RSS format, which was awesome. But then I switched into Python from some other stuff I was doing, and I'm like, all right, well, I really want to get into the Python ecosystem. I don't want to just learn the language and stuff. I want to know, what are the stories? Like, what's trending? What is the interesting story behind why Django is the way it is and the way Flask is the way it is? So I'm like, all right, where are the podcasts? And at the time, there were none. And I'm like, well, I really want to hear these stories. I guess I'll just put it out there, and if people don't make too much fun of me or hate it too much, I'll just keep doing it, right? And so the reception was very welcoming and warm, and I just kept doing it.
Gotcha. So, Brian, for you, when was the inception of Test and Code? And did that come before or after Python Bytes as part of that sort of cooperative experience that you had with Michael?
Yeah, so before, I actually was dragging my feet for a long time getting ready to podcast, and I'm fairly certain I recorded my first test podcast like before Michael, but I'd been working on it for a while, and I was writing about testing in Python for a couple of years ahead of time. And
you had your short book, right, before I started the podcast, I think.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I had stuck a bunch of the blog posts that were really popular about training people on different test frameworks as a ebook, and people were buying it. And I think it was just as a thank you, because all this stuff was online. They could just read it for free. And also I did think that maybe podcasting I'd reach more people, but I also really wanted to interact with people. I wanted to be able to really talk with people about their testing stuff, because I didn't really get very many comments on the blog posts, so that it's not really a give and take, and I really wanted to talk to people directly, and so podcasting seemed natural. And I was very nervous. I would completely script out the entire episode at first, and it would take forever to get out like a 20-minute podcast, and then after I got used to it. It just sort of, it flows better, and it's still hard, but it's getting a lot easier. And then, I don't know, was it like 6 months into it or something? Michael approached me and said, "Hey, I got this idea for a short format, like a whole bunch of small, articles, maybe 6, in a shorter episode." And then we came up with the name. I think Michael probably came up with the name Python Bytes, and it actually really helped me to have 2 people. So I really highly recommend, if you want to do podcasting, to have 2 people, because he depends on me, I depend on him. I make time, even if there's a million things going on in my life. I make time to make sure Python Bytes happens.
Yeah, we almost have never missed an episode, and that's just because we count on each other. Even if we pull in half an hour before, the show notes are empty, like, they'll be there in 20 minutes.
And Michael was in Germany for, what, a year or something?
Yeah, we did it for a while when I was in Germany. That's right.
There's always something going on in the Python ecosystem, though. So it feels like I'm equally surprised and not surprised with Python Bytes, because you think you know all that's out there, and you very quickly learn that you don't. But
what's funny is, sorry, just to follow up with that, what's really funny is Brian and I say this all the time on the show, on Python Bytes. We will discover one thing. We're like, oh, this one thing is interesting. And then we'll hear about 5 other things that we didn't know. Like our listeners, they completely like round out the edges that we have no idea that are even there. It's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and as you had talked about guests, I'm sort of curious, what did you, as you grow in a podcast and you grow in popularity and size, I imagine it becomes very easy to find people to come onto your podcast because you're well known. But for those who are starting out with podcasts, and when you 2 started out, how did you go about seeking out guests to come onto your podcast?
Well, I had the first 5 episodes figured out. I knew I could talk to my friend Nicola about his Eve project. I could talk to Jesse Davis about MongoDB. I could talk to Chris Madano about Pyramid, and so on. After 5, I'm like, I'm out of ideas. I better figure something out, because I don't know anybody and I have no more ideas or things that I really know that well afterwards. But people were very gracious, and they came on, and I just realized I just need to know to ask interesting questions that the listeners themselves would hope will get asked. So you don't have to be an expert. You just have to be curious, sort of, for your listeners. And it was okay. So I don't know. That's how I kind of got started with the ideas. And in the beginning, it was hard because I didn't know what to cover. But now it's pretty easy. How about you, Brian?
I was actually so blown away. So I started out, and I hadn't been to any conferences at all, so I didn't know anybody in the Python community personally. But I was I'm talking about Test and Code, where I was actually interviewing people often that weren't even involved with Python. So other people with testing voices and stuff. And so I was looking through some of the early ones. I would just email people, somehow get their email or somehow get their contact information, and just ask. And sometimes I wouldn't get anything back. Like some of my heroes, like Ned Batchelder came on. Harry Percival was one of the early ones. And then I got like brazen and started asking people, like the head of Travis, one of the founders of Travis was on, Travis CI. And then and I even like asked David Heinemeier Hansen, because he was involved with TDD is Dead talks, and he came on, and I'm like, this is amazing. And that's actually one of the incredible things about podcasting is you can ask like some big people and they'll say yes often, whereas if you just called them at random and said, hey, can I just talk to you for an hour, they wouldn't do that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Certainly the nature of it being broadcast. I mean, I think about myself, and for some of the projects I am working on, it would I don't think I would turn that down either, right? It's sort of nice to get your voice out there. Of the episodes in the podcast that you've done, which at this point are innumerable, I think Python Bytes is well over 200 at this point, if I recall. Yep. Which ones stand out to you? Which are some of your favorite, most interesting podcasts to record?
It's kind of like which one of your babies is better or whatever, right? It's hard, but I would say there are so many times that personally been surprised more on Talk Python than on Python Bytes, because I'm always there with Brian and we kind of got a flow. So I'm not as surprised there. But on Talk Python, I've had conversations with people who, I thought, well, maybe they'll have something to talk about that's kind of interesting. And at the end, my jaw was just hanging, like what these people have accomplished with how much background and education in development. Like they don't have CS degrees or whatever, but they're doing stuff that is so mind-blowing, interesting, and yet is fairly accessible to like common people. So often I've had these kinds of experiences. I'm happy to tell some stories there, but like those kinds of things of just not so much, we had, people who are in charge of Django or Flask or whatever, and that's amazing that they're doing great stuff, and I'd love to have them on the show. But like these people who would never come up on the radar of anything because they're just doing work and amazing stuff, but it's kind of they're just going to work and doing it, and it's really cool. Like astronomy, particle physics, philosophy, Python and philosophy. I mean, come on.
One of the recent ones that I remember listening to was the one that you had the data engineer from one of the F1 teams on.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember I had sent that to my friend who's very into F1 but isn't technical at all.
Yeah.
And he said, probably about halfway through it got into topics that I couldn't understand, but it was still really interesting for him to hear this technical perspective on this, racing aspect that he really enjoyed.
Yeah, cool. I mean, that's the kind of stuff, right? Like that person wouldn't go speak at a conference, but they have this insight into this world that is so interesting. That guy was doing wind tunnel optimization for F1 using Python and on all sorts of neat stuff. Yeah.
And managing the data flow there. Yeah. What about you, Brian?
So that it's kind of a mix. There's some people that I've tried to get on, and it's important enough to me that I really work hard at it. And one of them was David Hussman. He's not really known that well in Python, but was in the testing community, and he also was instrumental with chaos, getting the chaos engineering and chaos stuff going. But I had, admired his speaking style, and he was known as the dude, and I worked really hard to get him. And then one time he contacted me back and said, "Okay, let's do this," and we did the interview, and it came out in 2017. But then he was fighting cancer at the time, and he passed away in 2018. And I am very honored to have that be one of his last interviews with me, and that was pretty amazing. And then some of the others is when people reach out to me that I would have never thought to ask, because there's people doing incredible things all over the place, like you were talking about the F1 racing, and that's incredible. I had somebody come on to talk about so a person named Limay Nasseri from she was working at Comcast at the time, and we talked about A/B testing, because they did A/B testing of the control system of selecting streaming movies and stuff like that. And I mean, I wouldn't have thought to reach out to Comcast and say, "Hey, you got anybody that can talk to me about A/B testing?" And so these conversations with people that I would there's definitely people I want to talk to that I get to, and then people that think, I've got something to share and I want to get out there and share it. These are often incredible conversations. The hard part sometimes is if I really have no idea what somebody's doing, coming up with questions ahead of time, so that I don't really like to go get on cold and say, "Hey, so what do you do?" But sometimes I have to, and sometimes those are great conversations to have.
Yeah, I've been continually impressed, just as both of you have spoken, with the sort of breadth and diversity in which both testing and Python has been deployed. And it's one of those situations where you look at something and you don't realize how much goes on behind it, right? Things like F1, right? Things like all of the Comcast. Of course, Comcast has unit tests and whatnot in some of their stuff, but it's not something that you would think about normally, and so it's very awesome to hear those voices and perspectives. So recently, both of you have sort of become your own sponsors for the podcasts that you've been doing, which has been very exciting to see. But for people who are interested in starting their own podcasts, or are currently running a podcast and are interested in trying to have that subsidize some of their income, how do you go about finding sponsors, or did the sponsors come and find you?
Brian, you'll go first.
For me, I reached out to a few people. I've had sponsors reach out to me, and it's been a mix, but that's only been really recently. Early on, I reached out to try to get people to sponsor the show, and then there was a dry period where I didn't have any sponsors for a while, so I reached out to all of the people in the Python community that I knew that had products that they were trying to sell, like the Real Python people and I guess before it was Real Python, but and Michael and others, and say, hey, I've got some empty spots. Do you want to sponsor the show? And trying to promote other people. So it's really tough, actually, right at the beginning. Michael was like, he got ads early, I think, didn't you?
I would say so. I'd say probably after 3 months. And a couple of people had reached out to me, and I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't expect anybody would pay me to do this. That wasn't the idea, but if they're lining up, like let's it's only going to help me put more time and energy and focus into it. So why not? It wasn't what I expected, but it was a nice way to help me transition and putting more time and energy into this kind of stuff. Now I do reach out to them. I'd say maybe a third of the sponsors are because of people I have reached out to. And then 2/3 are just sort of out of the blue. You didn't know that they came. But that doesn't help people when they're getting started, right? Like, it doesn't help to say, oh, they'll reach out to you, but it's like Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner, build it, they'll come, maybe not, sort of thing. So in the early days, what I would say, and this applies in general for content creation, regardless of whether it's Python or it's JavaScript or it's camping techniques, it doesn't matter, right? There's a group of companies who are making products that want to reach your audience. So what you can do is you can say, well, what websites am I seeing ads for products that I'm sure my people go to? What newsletters are being sponsored? What other YouTube streams are being sponsored? Just find the head of marketing, the founder, whatever, on LinkedIn, shoot them a message and say, hey, I saw you're sponsoring this. I could help you reach the similar audience from another channel. And in the early days, make the price low and just get into a groove, and then you'll figure it out from there.
Got it. Thank you for that. That's sort of a bit of behind the scenes, right, with how some of this stuff works. And on that note, for the two of you, how has the last year and COVID specifically changed aspects of your podcasting and how you do podcasts? Do you find that it's easier, it's harder, it's sort of more in line with like the way that you're doing work in general? What does that look like?
For me, it's incredibly easier. So I, before the pandemic, I was working. When we started the podcast, I was working like 3 miles from home. So I would just do it at lunch. So I'd come home for lunch and then we'd do the podcast. And then the company moved, and it's like an hour drive away. I had to talk with my manager and say, look, I don't really think it's reasonable. I mean, I just asked him, is it okay if I podcast in one of the conference rooms or something? Because, this is nuts.
Much harder to drive home for lunch.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, sure,
right?
go ahead.
Yeah.
Coworkers look at me funny when, like, once a week, I'm carting all my audio equipment and stuff to one of the rooms, but it works okay. But it's a lot easier now because I work right here at the same desk I'm sitting at. So.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't really thought about how that made it easier for you. But you're right that it has, for sure.
Yeah, Michael, I don't think it changed much, did it?
I remember you've been working from home.
I've been working from home for quite a while, and I've been doing the podcast and then the associated training company as my full-time job since 2016. So I've got a lot of flexibility. I don't have to negotiate with a boss. I just leave a spot blank on the calendar, and it's golden. I would say COVID. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, just guests are better because guests have to do they usually didn't have all the audio equipment and even just a separate mic and headphones. Now they do because they're all doing the same stuff.
As a rising tide of audio quality, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's interesting. So in this area where I am now, I have a Xbox that my daughter, when she's now not at school, will sometimes come over and she'll play in the Xbox with her friends and stuff. So there's actually more like scheduling coordination, like, oh, you got to be quiet, put on your headphones. She's been through probably 20 podcast recordings with headphones, on Minecraft or something, right? So it's pretty interesting. But yeah, I think, like this is the new dressed up. Do you have lights? Can you sound okay? Like, this is coming to work professionally rather than in that, like, the ripped jeans.
Right. Absolutely.
And
I've
I
seen
like Brian.
People with, No, sorry. I've seen people with ring lights and thought, wow, okay. Very fancy, right?
Yeah. So like Brian says, people are getting a little bit better at being like presentable and stuff. And so it does make it easier to record good quality to share with everyone.
Well, and we have guests now on Python Bytes a lot. And
I was going to ask about that, yeah.
And we're live streaming it. And I think if in the beginning, if we'd have brought guests on and say, by the way, we're going to be live streaming this out at the same time, video, I don't think a lot of people would be okay with that. But now it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm Zooming half the day anyway, so.
I'm seeing myself, on my own screen half the day. So, yeah, we actually had gotten that as a guest question on whether or not, like, if you two are enjoying that new live stream format, specifically live stream plus podcast format for Python Bytes, and if you think that will continue.
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it as well. It's a real trade-off, right? You actually have a little less mental capacity to be focused on the conversation if you're also trying to juggle tabs that people can see, the live chat, the who's on where on the screen. Like, there's just more coordination that is in the way. Yeah. But I find it really valuable that people can come and ask questions and say, that's really neat. I tried this. Could you ask them that? And to me, I don't know how you feel, Brian, but that bringing in the live aspect, even if it's just 10 or 20 people on the stream who are participating, bringing that sort of audience feel, I think that's really awesome.
And we're getting better at it. So Michael brought up the idea to do it. And I thought, why not? And at first we just would record both of our heads talking, and it's not really that entertaining video to watch, honestly. But if we have 3 people on there, it's a little more exciting. And then lately we've been trying to bring in, like, if we're talking about a product or something, or, some tool, we can bring up the website and show it so that people can take a look. It's also more entertaining for us to look at. And then one of the things we realized early on was I was just along for the ride and having fun, but Michael was doing all the work in the background. And then one time he just reached out to me and said, look, this is a lot for me to do. And it's the focus thing of having to focus on everything. So making it so that both of us do it, so that, like, for instance, if I'm talking about an idea or something, Michael can be watching the chat, and vice versa, and we can trade off the responsibilities. And I think I hope it's helped Michael a little bit.
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, it's a cool team effort.
I imagine that with the guests as well, when the guests are talking, that sort of provides a space for that. A little peek behind the curtain for PyCascades. For that exact reason, we actually have some amazing volunteers who are filtering questions, who have throughout the day been filtering questions into, like, a shared Google document for us, so that we just get this condensed view and don't have to be looking through chat while we're also giving this panel, right?
That's a good idea. We could bring on somebody to do that work for us. But
I don't want to volunteer anyone, but I know that Anthony Shaw is a frequent guest on your podcast, so maybe that can be added to his responsibilities on the show.
Right? Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, I think fantastic. He enjoys being the heckler.
Peanut gallery, right? Virtual peanut gallery.
Exactly.
So for each of you on the more technical side, what is the bare minimum essentials for you? Brian, you had talked about carting your audio setup around to work. What is the minimum sort of required for you to produce for you to feel like you're producing a quality podcast?
Absolute minimum is just headphones. Seriously, because I often interview guests that they're just using their, like, MacBook microphone, but if they have headphones also, that separation makes the audio quality okay. And then one step up is a mic, and I can't remember the name of it, but the ATR 2100 or something.
Yeah, I think that's it.
think that's it. It's like a $60, $80 USB mic that can be switched over to, is it RCA or I don't know.
XLR.
Yeah, XLR, that's it. Bad memory. But so then I don't know. That's good. I switched. I went crazy for a while and got like an audio strip so I could do noise cancellation and EQ and stuff like that. But now I'm down to just a Scarlett, which is just an audio interface for a mic, and a Shure mic, which is like $110 mic or something like that. So it doesn't take a lot to bump up the quality quite a bit, but yeah, a decent mic and some headphones, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I would second that. For $50, you can have a quite good microphone, and you could record everything with free software, right? There's no, I don't think there's anything that you would need to buy or pay. You could edit with Audacity. There's a lot of ways to get into it and go, okay, this is working for me. I'll upgrade to X, Y, and Z. Having the microphone close to you makes a really big difference. So if you've got some kind of stand or something that even can get like a $70 mic, the other thing you got to be careful of is you'll end up in the microphone, junkyard of dreams or whatever. Like I've got a closet full of that $300 microphone, that $400 microphone. They all weren't as good as this $70 one, so I just stuck them in the closet. It's really frustrating, but you try them. But yeah, there's a lot of good ones. A dynamic mic over a condenser mic, if you can get it.
Definitely.
The echo and the background noise is way better, even though people say condensers sound better. That's in a studio with no background noise.
Yeah, in a house, do it dynamic. Yeah.
For someone who doesn't know any difference between condenser and dynamic, what are those two? What's the distinction between those two?
I don't know the physics. Maybe Brian knows, but the dynamic ones record just like a little bubble. So like as I move away, you can see that the sound is gone. So if I just that distance makes such a difference. Imagine like if there's a car that drives by, it'll never come through. Whereas the condenser ones are more to pick up the whole room and every detail, but also the details of the echoes and background noise.
Yeah, dynamic is just going to be close up, and I like it just for that, the noise cancellation. I do like the sound of a condenser mic, but Michael's right. That's in a room with a bunch of padding and stuff like that, and I don't think. And actually, it's unfortunate. A lot of people recommend condenser mics for podcasting, and I just don't. I think that's a mistake for most people with echoey rooms and stuff. The other thing that I guess Michael brought up an arm or something. One of the mistakes a lot of people do is they have their mic on a fixed stand on the table while they're doing mousing and keyboards and stuff, and any sort of desk noise will transfer through the mic. So it really is. It's good to have either I have a freestanding arm stand that comes over, and I just bought the one music stands for microphones for singers. I got it at an estate sale or something. But if it has to be on your table, get some sort of they have those little rubber band things or something that hold your mic so that it dampens it.
Shock,
I don't know what those
something
are called.
or other, yeah.
Shock mount. Yeah, that's it.
Do either of you have sort of backup keyboards that are non-mechanical ones that you use during podcasts? Because we've had several times throughout today where someone picks up is like, oh, that's a cherry balloon.
No. I mean, we don't type that much, but even for the courses that I record or the live presentations where I'm doing live coding, because of the dynamic mic, it's directional away from the mic, and you really don't hear it. Like here, I don't know if I'll type something. This is me typing on a mechanical keyboard. I don't know if you heard anything, right? So it's all about the dynamic mics.
Oh, curious. So can you hear me?
Barely.
Okay.
I'm gonna try as well.
Oh yeah. See, I think you got a condenser mic.
So. I think I do. Oh my goodness.
I did actually. So I was in a conference call. It was a fairly boring conference call last week, and I forgot that I had left my mic on, and I was just programming while the meeting was going on, and then somebody said, "Brian, we did mute you because there's a lot of background noise." So I guess you have to watch that.
That's great. On the software end, Michael, you had spoken about Audacity. For I imagine too, as you went through the last 4.5 years, that you have changed that software and what it is that you use. What sort of software tools have you both used, and which would you recommend, particularly both free and paid, if that's something that you're using?
Well, in the beginning, there's two aspects. There's how do you record it, and then how do you edit it, right? You got to put those really to the side. For a long time, Brian and I both used Skype eCam recorder, and we would just have a Skype call, and it records the Skype call, which you could say, oh, you could go to Zoom. People say, oh, let's go use Zoom or Google Meet. Like, no, it's really important that it is multi-track, because somebody's quiet, somebody's loud, somebody's dog barked, but they weren't speaking. Like, you could do so much cleanup if they're separate tracks, right? So Skype was really the only way that was reasonable then. Or, one thing that we do a lot is we'll do what's called a double ender. You'll say, hey, do you have QuickTime?
Record, right, yeah.
Yeah, could you just press record on QuickTime, all press record, and you have some crappy recording, but then you can line up the audio tracks and then throw away the crappy one, right?
Yeah.
So that's real common, and that's free. I started editing with Audacity and then producing, like aligning all the tracks. There's like probably 30 tracks that make up Talk Python with GarageBand. But I started using Adobe Audition because it's magical for doing automatic cleanup, even though it costs like $30 a month forever. Brian, how about you? What's your evolution?
Yeah, so I used Audacity for a long time, and it's free, but it's actually hard to use to me. But you got a workflow that I was used to that worked okay. But then I upgraded my Mac, and the Audacity was kind of clunky on the newer Mac. It didn't support. I don't know. There was lag. It probably caught up now, but I needed something right away, so I switched to Logic Pro, which is, I can't remember how much it was, but it's not very. It's like, actually, I'm not even gonna guess, but it's a one-time fee, and then you just have it, and it was pretty reasonable. And so for editing, I'll use Logic Pro. And then I also use a couple other tools together. I haven't found something that does everything I want. Occasionally, if I need to clean up 2 audio tracks, and I don't have them leveled and stuff, and I don't have time to fiddle with it myself, there's a website called Auphonic, AUPHONIC, which does this stuff for you, and it's pretty. The free version gives you some time, but it's pretty cheap. I think
it's very affordable. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also really love an application called Hindenburg, which does a lot of automatic stuff too. So my workflow often includes all 3 of those. And then for recording, I'm actually trying to get away from Skype a little bit. I'm not going to recommend any web thing because they all kind of have their own quirks. But there's a few web services that will record both ends. But the reason being, it's getting to the point where a lot of people have other things they have to connect on, and Skype just seems, I don't know, there's something clunky about it.
And we've also switched.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say, we also switched for the live stream and also the recording using StreamYard, which is also what we're actually connecting with now, which is really nice and easy. So that's one more thing to throw in the mix.
I see. Yeah. I remember you had mentioned Skype on one of the podcasts, and I had thought, well, when you had mentioned that, what in the world is the reason for them using Skype? And I think, I don't know, maybe the McElroys or something use Skype as well. And having that, knowing that it's multi-channel, that makes all the difference, I imagine, in terms of quality.
It does require the guest to have to go create a Skype account if they don't have one. And that's why I still like it, and it records great quality, but that extra step is something I want to get away from.
Absolutely. For speaking of that, how long is what does the time commitment look like for both of you with regards to your individual podcasts and then the podcast that you produce together?
I guess I'll go first. The Python Bytes, at first it was a lot of time combing through articles and stuff, but we have a lot of people that recommend things. So if there's quite a bit of backlog of things, it isn't hard to find things to talk about. It's hard to find good things to talk about because there's a lot of topics that in the week I don't have time to go read an hour long article just to find out at the end that it really wasn't worth reading. But there's that. So I usually spend about 2 hours of time researching, and then we record for half an hour to an hour. So it's like maybe 3 or 4 hours a week for Python Bytes. For testing code, at first I was spending probably 10 hours a week to produce a half an hour of audio, and now it's probably down to about the same. I probably spend 3 or 4 hours a week on that.
Yeah, for me, I probably do about as much for Python Bytes, but then another hour of generating transcripts, chapters, get the MP3s, like all the little, final bits. And then Talk Python's probably about 10 to 15 hours per episode, which is not too bad unless I get far behind and I freak out and I have a bunch of people and then they all schedule the same week. I've done 7 or 8 recordings in 1 week. And when you're doing 10, 15 hours of work to prepare, it was really a long week. But then again, I didn't have to work for 3 months after that. So that was okay.
It really does seem like an iceberg of time, right? The time that people see as they're listening to the podcast is not quite the same amount of time that it takes to produce that. And it's even a little bit more different for me because I personally listen at either 1.25 or 1.5 speed for most of my podcasts. So I have to say, for me, this has been a bit of a trippy experience to hear you speaking at a regular cadence. But yeah, that's really helpful to know about the time commitment. And in terms of publishing the podcast out, there's Spotify, there's Podcast Addict. How do you get connected with those platforms? What do you decide, like which platforms to publish to?
Python. So both Talk Python and Python Bytes, they're real similar looking because I took one and made a copy of it and then redesigned the UI for it. So they're basically the same web app underneath, and they're all Python, 3 Pyramid, MongoDB, and they just publish an RSS feed. And then we have a server that sends out the MP3s. We do an insane amount of traffic. I think like 7 or 8 terabytes a month of traffic in just MP3s. Yeah, it's insane. I think we do maybe a terabyte of RSS. I'm not entirely sure. I have to double check that. But like the amount, it's just multiple seconds. Give me that half meg file. Boom, 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 like constantly all day long. It's crazy. So anyway, that is the source. But once you register in iTunes, all the other apps, they just look at iTunes and go, what's listed there? We'll go find it. So for example, if you use Overcast, you don't go to Overcast and register for it. Just being in iTunes is sufficient. And we started out putting it in the Google Play Store or whatever, but I don't know. They've done weird stuff where it keeps moving and breaking. I'm not sure how relevant that is. Brian, what do you want to add to that?
So when I started out, there wasn't a lot. I mean, when both of us started out, there wasn't a lot. I think that's one of the reasons why Michael kind of rolled his own.
Yeah, I looked around. I didn't want to build my own, but then I'm like, these all look really embarrassingly bad, and I can build this in a weekend. I'll just bite the bullet, and it'll be a fun experiment. But there's better stuff now, right?
So if you're an Uber hacker like Michael, then go for it, roll your own. But I would totally not recommend that. So I started out.
I agree, actually, yes.
I started out hosting the website on WordPress with like some WordPress podcasting plugins, and then hosting the audio on Libsyn. But when I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and I can't remember his name right now, but one of the major podcasters started his own hosting platform called Fireside.
Dan something.
Dan something.
Yeah, 5x5 TV, whatever that was.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But it's great. So my website, the website's not perfect. There's a lot of stuff I would like to have different, and I might go back to hosting my own website and then just hosting the audio on Fireside. But right now, Fireside takes care of all of it for me, and it's like $9 a month.
Including bandwidth, which is non-trivial.
Yeah, including bandwidth. And then they have pages on their site to tell you how to, like they do all the submitting to Apple. But then there's a few others like Google Play and iHeartRadio and stuff. And if you care about those, they give you instructions on how to sign those up. But before I did that, so for instance, one of the things you have to do is for an audio, you have to like tag it. You have to put a whole bunch of extra metadata on your audio to get it to be a podcast. And that was non-trivial amount of time for me. I mean, once I got used to it, it's like 5 minutes, but it's still that extra stuff that I got to do. Mm-hmm. Whereas Fireside, you fill out a web form, pop it in, upload your audio, and it just does the rest for you. It doesn't mean that it's easy. I still probably, after all is said and done, I'm still spending probably an hour or two editing everything, but still.
Does it, is the process for registering with iTunes difficult at all? Does that require...
no,
like
it's
any
just
sort of
weird and
payment to do that,
unexpected.
or-
So I think they won't approve it if there's not an MP3 there, but you don't want to announce your podcast yet because if it's not in iTunes, people can't subscribe to it. Even if they're on another player, like because they pull that directory, it won't show up. So you've got to stealth publish, then submit, wait the 3 days for them to see the MP3 is not some kind of prank, then approve it, and then you can say, oh, look, it's published, right? So there's like this weird sort of double step you got to do. But other than that, it's not hard.
That's only, just to clarify, that's only for starting a new podcast,
Yes.
right? Not every
No,
episode.
that's to get it
Yeah.
approved as a new entry into the catalog of podcasts. That's right.
Perfect.
Yeah, now after we do it, I hit publish and it shows up in my audio player within minutes. Actually, minutes is slow. Sometimes it shows up like within a minute, but
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, and I've been told here that that Michael has been answering questions in chat as we're doing this. So thank you for
that's
doing
awesome.
that. Much appreciated. Much more equipped for doing that through some of the experience that you have. But on that note, we have a question from one of the viewers who has asked if you've noticed any changes or changes to listeners or downloads since the start of the pandemic, and if that has changed or leveled out, or if it continues to climb, what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about you, Brian, but there was an article that came out about the first month when COVID hit the U.S., which is one of the larger podcasting markets. Like for some reason, the population in the U.S. listens a little more. I think maybe it has to do with being stuck in cars. But anyway, they said that the general listenership was down like 20% across the board on podcasts. And I would say that was probably true for me, because who's going to listen while they're in the gym? That's where they used to listen. Better not go to the gym anymore. Or stuck in traffic. That was a great place to listen. Well, now you don't go to work anymore. Mm-hmm. You might listen at home when it's relaxing. Oh, wait, your kid is screaming. So that's not right. There's just like all these areas. I think it's starting to come back. Like for me, I find it super interesting that I've been listening to shows with the more people on it, almost the better. And I feel like, oh, I'm kind of part of this group. And it's like I get to hang out. Like it's filling this really weird void now for me. So I'm just going to take, some time and listen while I'm cooking or whatever. Because it brings back what has kind of been taken by COVID a little bit for me. Brian?
I see.
Yeah, well, my own listening habits. When the pandemic first hit, I stopped listening to podcasts. But I did miss all that technical information. So finding different times. So like I said, I was having an hour commute to work. I was totally listening to tons of podcasts. But now I'm more selective. I don't listen to as many. But I also I do it at different times. Like when I go to the grocery store, I'll be listening to it, or doing yard work or housework. I'll listen. But yeah, mine dropped as well. About 20% drop. I totally saw that right off the bat. It's gradually going back up, but I've also seen differences in length. So I'm trying to do more shorter episodes on Test and Code, and I think an hour is actually too long. If you hit over an hour, like I think that's too long anymore because people don't have that much time. I know that's me. If I open a podcast episode and it's like hour and 40 minutes, like I'm not listening to this. So
there are very few podcasts that are in my queue that would that I would follow through on that one for.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
It's interesting to hear your perspectives on how that has decreased. For Ookla, we run speed test, and no surprise, more people being home means more people being frustrated with their internet. So we had seen a spike in speed tests throughout the pandemic. And so it's really interesting to hear the ways that things are affected that you wouldn't necessarily consider, right? I mean, I do find for myself that my podcast listening has decreased in much the same way that yours has, because I'm not commuting, right? I'm not or rather my wife is home now, where like one of us would go into work, and so there's more time where we're just with each other. So
we had fewer advertisers, more people buying courses. I mean, they were kind of like did a bit of a take some from here, put some there, just because like everyone's habits and what mattered shifted for the world, so much.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. We have about 5 minutes left, so I just want to get in a couple more questions. This one is from a viewer. How much do you prep your guests? Do they have questions or topics that are given ahead of time, or does most of that preparation come on your end?
Go ahead, Brian.
It varies. I've been doing more, giving somebody an outline or just a handful of questions that I'll probably ask. I think that eases people, because there's some people that are still nervous. I think it's natural to be nervous to be interviewed on a podcast. But if they know ahead of time that I'm just going to ask about the questions, it's the topic they already know about. That's why I'm asking them to be on the show. I think that eases things up a little bit. I also try to tell people that it is edited, so if you say something and you think, oh man, that was dumb, I should say something else, go ahead and say that. Say, this is dumb, I'm going to say something else, and then we'll just cut that out, and I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah, I come up with a doc and share it with the guests and say, here's kind of the structure. There's a lot of things I don't even know to ask, so could you just put in like 10 one sentences of what you might think could be interesting during an hour, and that's way more than enough, but it really helps to have some structure. It's not just like two people rambling for 3 hours on a mic and they're like, oh, well, why we're here? Oh yeah, we should probably talk about that before it's over. That doesn't make sense, but it happens a lot.
Do you find that it's like once you get started with a guest, it's much easier to like get the conversation off topic almost?
Well,
do you find that you ever have to like reel yourself in during podcasts?
Not too often, but you do find that some people are nervous, like Brian said. So if you talk to them before you press record a little bit, until you can kind of see them they're just relaxed, like, all right, now we're ready. Now let's get started, right? You don't have to say like, oh, I see you're relaxed, let's go. Like then they're like, oh, I was ready to freak them out again. But you can just kind of like not jump straight into it, and it helps a lot.
Yeah, I'm usually talking to them like 5 minutes ahead of time, and then I say, okay, you ready to go? But there's some people that, like, the stuff that we recorded right at the beginning is gold. And so I'll just say, hey, we're going to record the intro now, but is it okay if I just keep that earlier part? And usually they're okay with it. So
Awesome. Okay, we're getting close. Something came up before this that I want to get in for both of you. What is your weird podcasting tip that people wouldn't necessarily think of? I know Michael has one.
I have one. I'll go let Brian,
go first.
I'll let
and
Brian think about it.
His.
So I'll do two because they're really, really quick. One, the microphone should be very close to you. You could have a $50 mic close. That sounds great. You could have a $1,000 mic on your table far away, and you probably won't do as good. But the non-obvious tip, you can't tell it, but if I try to lean back, I'm sitting in a rigid metal chair with a wooden flat bit where I sit, not a comfy Aeron, whatever chair, because those chairs squeak. They let you move away from the microphone and then back up to the microphone and away from the microphone as you lean. And so just forcing yourself to be stuck in position, center screen, near the mic, no squeaking. It's the cheapest chair you get. It's like a $10 chair.
cool.
Yeah, I'm employing that myself thanks to this tip from Michael.
The one tip I want to give is that the mic placement. So the mic should be facing your mouth, but your mouth should not be facing the microphone, because of pops. Like the P's and S sounds will just it'll be grating. They'll kick out all the time. So if you're talking directly into the mic, it's not a good.
Brian and I both have like a 30-degree off axis to avoid that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell it's very visible in the stream here. Two more super quick viewer questions. How do you do podcast analytics when there are so many different distribution platforms?
Well, for us, at least for TalkPython and Python Bytes, all the stuff comes back to our server, except for, I think Google takes it and then redistributes it. And I think Spotify does that as well, but it's not on Spotify, so that's not a problem. So we can track pretty carefully. Every download link in the RSS feed goes back to the site, does some analytics, and then actually takes you to the file. So it's just as simple as like intercepting the download request.
Yeah, Fireside does all the metrics for me. It breaks it out, but it does break out. I am on Spotify, and it breaks those out separate because they lag for a while. So you can't do the first 3 months or something like that. Spotify doesn't give you that information. So
I see. Okay, 30 seconds. Last question. What podcast app do you two recommend for listening to podcasts? Brian, you go first.
It's the orange one. What's the orange one?
Overcast.
Overcast, yeah.
Yeah, Overcast, no doubt. But it only is on iOS, but it is fantastic. Great support for chapters. A really nice app. I don't have a great recommendation for Android. I've tried some, but I don't know them well enough to recommend it.
I'm on Android. Podcast Addict is the one that I use.
Yeah.
It also has chapter support, and it has all the show notes and the links and everything. And so that one's been really helpful for me.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, Brian, thank you so much for taking some time out of your Saturday to speak with us. We're going to be...